Hi, how are you?
So today I'm going to talk about a manga called Hero Organization, which is a manga about mechs. You know, I usually don't watch mecha anime, let alone read a manga, but I'm only talking about this one because I think it might be peak. So, you know, it's like, it's still an ongoing manga, so I'm not going to talk about the whole thing because that'd be a pain. But I'm going to talk about the first 3 chapters because they're the ones that are mainly interesting. So we'll start with, you know, the whole space, the final frontier type of shit, you know, I'm saying at the end of the 22nd century, the end of the 21st century, humans now live in space. But in space, there's just that waiting for them. The threat is known as star beasts. The people who fight against the star beasts are known as heroes. Yeah, whole Izuku Midori type of speech, and I'm saying that because the main character literally looks like Izuku Midori, and his father looks like that guy from Kaiju number 8. So yeah, we go on to see that, you know, this guy has just won. The main character has just won a VR championship, which is just a futuristic esports event, and his father is proud of him or whatever. And they're interviewing him like, hey yo, so what's your goal for the future? Because of course that's what you gotta ask a person after an esports event. I mean, aren't you really unemployed enough? I mean, damn man, like if they still think he has a job opportunity, this is his life now, nigga. So yeah. And then he says, I want to pilot the real Mac because this dream was inspired by my dad because he builds Macs at work, and he also found out that his dad also wanted to pilot a Mac as a child, but he couldn't because, you know, life, just like I wanted to be a pilot, but I couldn't because, well, you know, life happens. So, yeah, could have been me up there, man. Could have been me. So now they're walking back home with his father, and then he decides to buy him, you know, like a toy of the Mac he was piloting in the game, which is like limited edition. But turns out he's broke as hell, so he buys him the cheapest one he could find. Broke ass nigga. And remember how the kid said his father builds mechs? Turns out he's not like a lead engineer or anything. He's the minimum wage worker at the Tamu factory. And while he's at work, he starts thinking about his son because unlike some of us, he has something to return home to. Okay? Not a sad, lonely apartment kid. I know you felt that one, man. I know that resonated with you. But guess what? Joke's on you. I'm not employed. But yeah, sometimes I just stay in bed for like, even if I'm awake, I just stay in bed. Because what the fuck do I have to wake up for, man? Like, what the fuck am I gonna wake up and do? Just watch the days go by. Okay, let me just stop. And during lunch break, just like a good South African parent, he boasts about his son to his colleague, and his colleague is like, "Oh man, like, aren't you a bit obsessed with your son?" And he says, "Yeah, man, he's so great, and I'm gonna build a museum for him after he becomes a hero or whatever." And his other colleagues, just like good South Africans, they fucking start talking about him behind his back, like, "Yeah, this guy, man, he's talentless, so he's reaching off his son's talents because he is talentless and broke. He did not succeed, so he wants his child to succeed for him."
What did he say?
And he almost fucking crashes out, but he's like, nah, these motherfuckers are just jealous that my son is a fucking, I don't know, he's a fucking goat or whatever he does, you know. And, you know, colleague number 1 says, "Hey yo, you know, man, your son, one day your son is gonna grow up and you're gonna have to let him go. You know his life belongs to him, right? Unlike my mother who wants me to be the lawyer." And when he's about to leave work, they say, "Hey yo, someone from the GEA wants to speak to you." The GEA is also known as the Hero Organization, which is like the whole name of the manga. So yeah. So he's at the receptionist, and then he meets the guy who wants to speak to him. So they sit down, and then bro thinks they want to scout his son, but turns out they want him to come there and, you know, do some military training so he can pilot a mech. And with piloting a mech being his lifelong dream, he says, "No, I have a son. Being in space for too long and being away from my son, that wouldn't be good." Then he says, "Hey yo, nigga, you turning down the most important job on earth for your son?" And then he tries to persuade him by saying, "Hey yo, if you become a hero, your son will be proud of you." And then bro just fucking takes the job application and throws it in the trash because, of course, he's a modern day person who the word job is a jump scare for them, I guess. Then he arrives home to find his son doing some Izuku Midori type research, you know, the kind where he writes down heroes' names and their powers and their possible weaknesses or whatever. But he's doing the same thing with mechs, you know, comparing the weapons, the weight, and the power output or whatever. And then when they're just, you know, talking about the Crimson Squad, which is just an elite squad of pilots, his son sees the application which he threw in the trash.
Hello there.
And he said, "Hey yo, Dad, the fuck you got an application to join the military?" And he says, "Yeah, but you know, because I'm gonna be staying away. I'm gonna be in space for 1 year. I just turned it down because I'm gonna be away from my son. And his son replies with, "I'll wait for you, wait for you." And then his son says, "Hey yo, you should apply." And then he starts thinking about the people at work who are making fun of him. And then he fucking crashes out and say, "Hey yo, this conversation is over."
Break yourself, nigga!
Which is weird. I mean, why are you crashing out, man? Your son just wants you to take a job. Why are you even thinking about those guys from work at this moment? I mean, they're literally saying you have no talent. You want your child to succeed for you. This is a chance for you to succeed for yourself. And why you're turning it down? What the fuck? And then later that night they're sleeping and he's just looking at the son, wondering if he's a good father. And then he thinks about his wife on her deathbed while the son was still like a baby. Then they're speaking like, "Hey yo, you can't do this to me, man. Please don't die. You can't leave me with a child. You know how goofy I am. It's weird how I was able to get a chick like you with how goofy I am, man." It's like, "The only reason I dated you is because you said you knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who knows Mr. Beast."
What?
And so since I'm on my deathbed, I'm gonna finally say it now. Just kidding. And then she dies, and then he's now thinking like, was I a great father all this time? Like, seriously? And then he has a dream about his son being a successful pilot in the future, saying, "Hey, yo, thank you, Dad. Due to your support, I was able to become a great pilot." A dream that my mom will never have. Yeah, or a dream she wishes was her reality. Well, it's not. And then he wakes up, locks the fuck in, and then takes the job application out of the trash and says, "Yeah, I'm going for this shit." And says, "Yeah, I want my son to be proud of me." Yeah, then the next day he gets to training, and then he has to shoot down a bunch of drones which are designed to look like the Star Beast. And then he gets into the suit, and then that one song starts playing, And then he gets his ass handed to him and
Help! Help! Help me!
Use the beats! Use the beats! Say something! Oh, okay! Oh, okay! I get it!
And then they tell him that the gun you're holding, it's powered by something called life energy. So he starts having memories about his wife and his son. Classic main character stuff. And then go beyond, plus ultra.
Go beyond! Plus!
And then he destroys the mechs and whatever. He destroys the drones, and then he gets the job. Yeah, everyone is happy. Then he runs back home, grabs his son, and says, "I'm gonna leave you for 1 year because I got the job." Oh, ding, ding, ding. So job worked out. And then the son hugs him, and then the next day he takes his son to his sister's house, and then they give us one of the hardest panels in history. Like, if this manga becomes a cult classic or whatever, this is gonna be one of the greatest panels in the manga. They give us this panel right here. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, they talk about how, both of them are going to be successful pilots and whatever, and they're going to have some sort of a father-son rivalry, see who's the best at what they do and whatever. So yeah, and then they give us that panel. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I don't give a fuck!
Then his father leaves on a rocket and
Josie's on a vacation far away!
gets to the base of the Space Force, and they're just briefing them like, "Hey, yo, welcome everybody," yada and that. Yeah, And they show him his mech, which is like the most basic mass-produced mech out there, which is the same toy he bought his child. The toy's shape is designed after the mech or whatever. So he says, "Oh well, fuck, getting the most simple mech here. Damn, that's bad." And then chapter 1 ends with him saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna use this mech to become a fucking legend." Yep, this is the story of an ordinary man who became a legend. And then chapter 2 starts with him fucking die.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Yeah, he dies. The pilot of the other mech stabs him in the chest for whatever reason. And the reason they're killing him is to make him a hero, which is weird. So this is what's going on. So, in this universe, no one wants to be in the military because it's fucking dangerous.
I just fucking shot myself.
So they're gonna use him, you know, they're gonna kill him, and then they're gonna be like, yes, he fought a star beast in order to save civilization, and then he died a very honorable death. Then that's how he's gonna become a legend, you know. And they're gonna pretty much use his image and be like, and you know, say things like, be like this man died fighting for his nation, yeah, blah blah blah, this and that. What a stupid reason to kill someone. Imagine killing someone in order to motivate people to join the military. It's just weird. And it's gonna work, okay? Spoiler alert, it's gonna work. Then he tells him that, yeah, you're gonna be remembered as a hero, and then he kills him and says, your son will be proud of you, man. Yeah, in his dying moments, he thinks about his son. And I'm not gonna lie, this is some sort of a weird, well thought out plan, because literally after the explosion happens in space and he dies, the people from the GEA goes to his sister's house, and then they say, hey, I'm sorry, that guy, he died in space. You know, he died in the line of duty, and then his sister fucking collapses, and his son hears this, and yeah, it's a sad moment. Imagine hearing that your father died, like Jesus. So yeah, and the people from the GEA, they walk away, and remember back in training where he fucking went plus ultra and killed all the drones? Yeah, they fucking tempered with his gun so he can, you know, fucking kill everything in sight, and so they can motivate him into thinking that he's powerful while he's actually weak as fuck. And then everyone salutes to his picture, and then it says, this is the story of an ordinary man who became a legend. He didn't become a legend by doing something, you know, like very legendary, like becoming Hokage, yo, becoming the ultimate pirate king or whatever. Nah, he died and was known as a legend who died in the line of duty while defending humanity, which he didn't. He was killed by other humans in order to, yeah, whatever, you get the point. And then we get taken to 60 days earlier before he died, you know, in order to show us how his life in the space military was like, and it was fucking horrible. You know, he'd be fighting star beasts out here, you know, and then running out of ammo, and then he has to fucking use a melee weapon. And then he beats up the star beast, and then he goes back to base and be like, hey yo, what the fuck, man? We were low on supplies and we're out of ammo. And it's like, yeah man, you're gonna have to use a melee weapon. And the military here sucks. I don't know, but it kind of reminded me of the military of my country. One specific country. Like, I don't know if the military is broke or there's some corruption going on, but I'm pretty sure there's some corruption going on, because motherfuckers, y'all literally live in space, dude. This is the 22nd century. Humans have become a multi-planetary species, man. Like, the Earth is owned by Zuckerberg, Mars is owned by Musk, Neptune is owned by Bezos,
With Jesse Jeff Bezos.
and Uranus is owned by Mr. Beast. Pause. And then they say, yeah, come on, man, you're a great mech pilot. You can pretty much manage without any ammo. That's weird, man. That's like going to your country and saying, hey yo, during a war, like you go to your country and say, hey yo man, we're out of ammo, and then they give you a katana. Like, nigga, what am I supposed to do with a katana, man? These people are using CRAM on humans. What's a katana supposed to do? For those who don't know, this is CRAM. And then like bro's mental health isn't good, and then he looks at his mech and says, man, both of us are falling apart because I think he lost an arm. And then a dude who murdered him shows up, you know, because we're currently in the kind of this is me, I'm probably wondering how I got here situation. So that's showing us how he got to dying. So yeah, it's back in the past. So he meets with the guy who's gonna kill him in the future. So introduced to the guy who's gonna kill him, which is his son's role model, who is Major Georgie Singh. I've never seen an Indian who looks like this, bro. This guy doesn't even look like an Indian. See, be the Indian that Japan thinks you are, okay? This guy looks like he's straight out of a JRPG. He looks like he's a character from Octopath Traveler, dude. Like, he looks like he'll be some sort of like a royal prince or some shit. You know, like when he appears, like, this is Sir Georgie. You know, like his surname would be something like Grey Rat. This is Sir Colin Grey Rat. Then when he appears in the background, there'll be that weird violin music, like. You know, you didn't expect, you know, you wouldn't see this guy show up and expect to hear Then he says, oh, you're the new recruit? Like, you've been doing some really good work, I appreciate it. Then he gives him the same toy he bought his son and says, take this as a souvenir for your son. I mean, this man is evil, dude. He knows that the guy won't make it back to his son, but he gives him something and says, take this as a souvenir for your son. Like, damn, bro, that's cold. And then he leaves, and then our protagonist meets a guy who pretty much knows what's going on here. And the guy tells him, like, the machines are failing them. They bring us here to space in order to use us like tools, then dispose of us once we have outlived our usefulness. You might try to be hero, but I'm leaving next month. You can join me or you can stay up here and die.
Is this nigga serious?
My protagonist literally says, nah, not me, I'm built different. Not gonna give up. I want my son to be proud of me. And then the guy says, what a fucking idiot. And then he starts a montage, a very depressing montage, where he fights and then he eats and then he fights and he comes back, he eats, he sits with like the same two guys at the table. And like they fight and they're happy and they're eating. The next day they go to fight and then one of them is dead. They go to fight and then the next day one of them is injured and stuff, And then he just spirals down even worse. And then despite all the eating, he starts looking like the average African child. Very malnourished.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Then he tries to go to the hospital and get some supplements. And then when he opens the door, he meets the Russian and is like, hey, hanging in the IC. So let me guess, when you're back on Earth, they took you to a training facility where you destroyed all the drones. And then they told you that you have potential. They tell that to everyone. You're not even a little special. Whatever. And then he tells him like, nigga, just go back to Earth before you die, dude. You're just disposable to these people. But our protagonist right here is as stubborn as an African parent when trying to tell them that they're wrong. And when he enters the hospital, like, shit is bad because tons of people are injured and the doctors ask him to come help them with patients. Like, seriously, like, shit is so bad that patients are helping doctors treat other patients. Like, who even owns this space station? My country? And there's even a child working in the hospital. Imagine that. I mean, it's not my country that's owning the spaceship. I can tell you that much. I'm pretty sure it's China. And then at the end of the day, the doctor invites him for a meal and turns out the kid was actually the doctor's child. And then, they sit down and they have food and apparently they have meat, which is, like, meat is a very rare thing in space. And yeah, so yeah, just giving this meal to, say thank you for helping us, yada yada, and dad starts speaking, talking about how life in space is hard and whatever since he was a doctor. And then, like, so bad that he can't even leave his child with anyone. He has to come with his child to space. And then he says, nah, man, this shit is too hectic for me. I'm leaving tomorrow. And then after that, our protagonist goes back to his room and then he video chats his son. Whatever, trying to put on a brave face and pretend like everything is okay. Which is not. And then after the voice call, he fucking starts crying holding a drawing that his son made.
Lord, give me a sign!
And then he goes to sing again and then he tells him that, nah, man, I'm quitting, man. I need to leave. And say, okay. The ship that's leaving today, is it today? Is tomorrow? It's full, so the next ship is coming in like a month. So yeah, just gonna have to hang in there for a month and then you'll be able to leave. And then during this conversation, someone comes in and says, hey yo, an emergency. A star beast is gonna attack that ship that's carrying the passengers and then, do things like, hey yo, that ship is carrying the doctor and his daughter. And then, Singh says, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna fight it. And then he says, hey yo, let me join you too. And they're about to give like Singh that like some sort of weird performance enhancing thing and says, hey yo, let me take it since I'm significantly weaker and whatever. So yeah, they go out, they fight the star beast, he manages to push it away from the spaceship, and then yeah, since he was far away, no one could see them, that's how Singh got the drop on him and killed him.
Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas.
Then fast forward 8 years later in chapter 3, we see Izuku Midoriya here in a job interview, something I've never been to. And like, I keep on calling him Izuku Midoriya as a joke, but come on, man, just tell me this isn't him. Just look at this guy, man. It's him. And then they say, okay, I have one important question for you. Do you hate the government because of what happened to your father 8 years ago? And he says, well, not currently, but... Now we get a JoJo frame, JoJo panel. And he says, but if I fail this interview, that might change. And it's a joke, everyone's laughing or whatever. Then he completes the interview, then he gets back home, and then he receives like an email saying he got accepted.
What did he say?
And then his auntie come up to him and says, so you took the military exam? Yes, I did.
Oh, shit.
Here we go again.
How many times do I have to tell you, don't join the military or you end up dead like your father? And then his aunt tries to warn him about, it's dangerous in the military, blah blah blah. But just like when my mom told me to apply for university, he didn't listen. And yeah, he ends up going, and then his aunt cries and then says, "Yo, get out of my sight, nigga." Then she like leaves, and then Roy's about to leave and is talking to his aunt's husband, and then, yeah, thank you for taking care of me all these years, blah blah blah. They say, yeah, make sure to write us letters. And like, hey, I already wrote some letters in advance, which is fucking weird. I mean, you're about to leave, you didn't even go to the place. How do you write letters in advance, dude? I mean, aren't you supposed to write letters about, experience and how it is, like, training with the military and stuff? How do you write them at home? Do you predict how it's gonna be? Like, is he a psychic or something? So yeah, he's talking to his uncle, I guess, or whatever. And his aunt is like listening in the other room, and she's crying because, she doesn't want him to die like his father.
I heard you bitches couldn't handle the clout. Lucky for you, it's my first day out.
And then before leaving, he visits his father's grave, which is pretty much not a grave, it's much like a war memorial of some sort. And then he thinks about 8 years before when he heard that his father died, and then a dude came up to him and offered to train him, and then they hit us with a twist. The dude who offered to be his mentor was Singh, the same guy who killed his father. And to be honest, this kind of reminds me of like a Jackie Chan movie from a long time ago. Was it Jackie Chan? I'm not sure. Yeah, a movie where Jackie Chan couldn't speak, and then he was like practicing kung fu at some sort of a school, and then he found like a prisoner who trained him secretly, but turns out that prisoner was actually the guy who killed Jackie Chan's father a long time ago. Yeah, I think it was called Wooden Shaolin Man. It reminds me of that one. Then he goes, to military training, and then his first training exercise, like it's hype, he's getting hyped up, and he's prepared, and the Kenshin music in the background is going wild, like. Then he pretty much fucking beats up all the, the drones and whatever, and everyone's just glazing on him because he's that good. And then while they're doing that, someone enters the observation room, which is his mentor, Singh. Who's been promoted from major to colonel now, apparently. And because he's a fucking narcissist, he starts glazing himself like, yes, it doesn't impress you, yes, I'm the one who trained him. And then they hit us with another twist because they show us back when he was at his father's grave, talking to his father's grave, I'm gonna be piloting a mech, I hope you're gonna be proud of me, this and that. Then he talks about Singh, he's like, yeah, I'm very good at piloting a mech, but I'm not on his level yet. And then he says, yeah, I gotta keep working hard at the academy. Is this academy called My Hero Academia? And I've got to gather some allies and become a true hero, because I got some inside information from the GEA about how you're not killed by a star beast, but killed by someone at the GEA. Plot twist, dun, dun, dun. But first I gotta rise through the ranks, gather enough evidence, and then crush them, which gives us another panel which goes hard. I mean, damn, look at this final panel of chapter 3. And yeah, those are the first 3 chapters of a manga called Hero Organization. It's an ongoing manga. Go read it, I guess. I don't know. And I know it's a simple plot, it's just a summer revenge story, but yeah, I kind of liked it. It had some sauce to it, unlike Jujutsu no Kaisen. I know I'm still reading that manga. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I guess I have nothing more to say about it. So